Donald threw caution to the wind during his address to a joint session of Congress last night and embraced his desire to become a very small dictator of a backwater banana republic. In his speech, he threatened war with Mexico. He claimed that the United States is reclaiming the Panama Canal, and he insisted that he'll take Greenland, quote, one way or another, unquote. I know it was a really long speech. I had to watch it, so I'm well aware, but that is an impressive range. The problem, though, is that he's not some local drug lord. He, to our undying shame, is actually the president of the United States of America. So this isn't just some empty rhetoric or a shot across the bow. He seems to be gunning for a global catastrophe fueled by his increasingly imperialist ambitions. So let's break this down. First, here's what he had to say about a war against Mexican drug cartels, which he framed as a military conflict.
The territory to the immediate south of our border is now dominated entirely by criminal cartels that murder, rape, torture, and exercise total control. They have total control over a whole nation, posing a grave threat to our national security. The cartels are waging war in America, and it's time for America to wage war on the cartels, which we are doing.
Donald blatantly drew the connection between economic pressure against Mexico in the form of tariffs to his desire to coerce our neighbor into compliance with U.S. demands on law enforcement. He said, quote, "Within hours of taking the oath of office, I declared a national emergency on our southern border, and I deployed the U.S. military and border patrol to repel the invasion of our country, and what a job they've done," unquote. Donald frames migration as an invasion, thereby justifying military deployment at the border. He continued, quote, "We need Mexico and Canada to do much more than they've done, and they have to stop the fentanyl and drugs pouring into the into the USA. They're going to stop it," unquote. Despite some concessions from Mexico, including deploying thousands of troops to the border, the seizure of fentanyl labs, and extraditing cartel leaders, Donald imposed the tariffs anyway, which further served to undermine Mexico's faith in his ability to stick to a deal. Donald will not be swayed from his desire to wage war on Mexico, which is something nobody should have ever had to say out loud, regardless of how reckless, unfounded, or blatantly illegal it is. This was the response of Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum after tariffs were implemented on Tuesday.
Buenos días a todos. No hay motivo, razón ni justificación que soporte esta decisión que afectará a nuestros pueblos y naciones. Lo hemos dicho de diferentes formas. Cooperación y coordinación, sí. Subordinación, intervencionismo, no. En estos 5 meses de gobierno hemos decidido responder con medidas arancelarias y no arancelarias que anunciaré en plaza pública el próximo domingo. Pero es inconcebible que no se piense en el daño que se va a causar tanto a ciudadanos y empresas de los Estados Unidos por el incremento en los precios de los artículos que se producen en nuestro país, como también el daño que se va a provocar por detener la creación de empleos en ambos países. Nadie gana con esta decisión.
Sheinbaum warned of further countermeasures if Donald doesn't back down, and she scheduled a call with him on March 7th to try to de-escalate the situation, which is entirely Donald's fault. But she also indicated that Mexico is preparing to diversify trade away from the United States, which is very bad for us economically. Mexican business leaders who initially believed negotiations could prevent tariffs expressed anger and betrayal, with some calling for a shift away from reliance on U.S. trade, which makes sense. Mexican businesses and trade groups have started seeking alternative export markets in Europe and Asia in response to Donald's trade war escalation. This is going very well for us so far because, again, we import a lot of produce from Mexico. So our prices are already going up on goods grown in the United States because of Donald's draconian immigration policies, which means that we have many fewer people actually picking our food for us because Americans won't do jobs like that. And on top of that, we're going to have massive increases in the price on goods like strawberries and avocados. Before we go further, please take a second to like and share this video. And if you haven't already, please do not forget to subscribe to our channel. And after you've done that, click on the bell icon, because that way you will be alerted every time new episodes drop. As mentioned, Donald also spoke about his plans for Panama last night, absurdly suggesting that the United States considers the canal a rightful American asset, even though such a claim undermines Panamanian sovereignty. Here's what he had to say.
To further enhance our national security, my administration will be reclaiming the Panama Canal, and we've already started doing it. Yesterday, a large American company announced they are buying both ports around the Panama Canal and lots of other things having to do with the Panama Canal and a couple of other canals. The Panama Canal was built by Americans for Americans, not for others, but others could use it.
Yeah, because we only do things for Americans now, apparently. Just, they applauded that, right? But remember, anybody who applaud the fact that that moron thinks that he's renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America will applaud anything. This is all awful. But I did experience a moment of schadenfreude when the camera panned to Secretary of State Marco Rubio and part-time Diet Coke fetcher, because if you've ever wondered what it looks like when somebody's tiny soul leaves their body, now you know. Anyway, Rubio met with Panamanian President Jose Raul Mulino in February, warning that China was exerting undue influence over the Panama Canal. The President Mulino, however, rejected these claims, and I'm pretty sure he would know better than Marco Rubio. And he stated clearly that China did not control canal operations. Take a look.
And we have Marco Rubio in charge. Good luck, Marco. Now, we know who to blame if anything goes wrong. Now, Marco's been amazing, and he's going to do a great job. Think of it. He got 100 votes.
Yeah, Marco's been amazing at licking my boots. Today, March 5th, 2025, Molino accused Donald of lying when he said that the U.S. has any right to reclaim the Panama Canal. It's because he was. He called it an affront to Panama's sovereignty and rejected Donald's narrative outright. This morning, March 5th, Molino posted the following, quote, "Once again, Donald lies. The Panama Canal is not in the process of recovery, and even less so is it a task that has been discussed in our conversations with Secretary Rubio or anyone else. I reject on behalf of Panama and all Panamanians this new affront to the truth and to our dignity as a nation. The cooperation between our governments relies on a clear understanding regarding matters of mutual interest, as has been the case. It has nothing to do with the recovery of the canal or with tarnishing our national sovereignty. National sovereignty. The canal is Panamanian and will remain Panamanian." He added, "Every square inch of the Panama Canal belongs to Panama and will continue to belong to Panama." Then Donald posted the following on his failing social media platform, quote, "We will see about that," unquote. I am shaking in my boots, and I'm sure President Molino is too. This is now what passes for American diplomacy and statecraft. There are no deals to be made. There are no discussions to be had. It's the way that Donald has negotiated, if you want to call it that, his entire life. He says, "This is what I want." And you say, "This is what I want." And he says, "Okay, fine, but I want what I want, and I'm not giving you anything." And then he has a temper tantrum if you stand up to him, or he impoverishes you and threatens you. So we'll see what happens with Panama. Donald then went on to offend another sovereign nation that wants nothing to do with him, suggesting annexation or U.S. statehood for Greenland, of all places, which is an autonomous territory of Denmark's. Play the clip.
And I also have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. We strongly support your right to determine your own future. And if you choose, we welcome you into the United States of America. We need Greenland for national security and even international security, and we're working with everybody involved to try and get it. But we need it really for international world security. And I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it.
Yeah, we totally respect your right to self-determination, except we don't, because we're going to acquire you one way or the other. That's how he does things. Donald's unfounded claim that he can acquire Greenland, whether by force, economic pressure, or diplomacy, well, let's throw that third thing out, has triggered backlash from both Greenland and Denmark, fueling a stronger independence movement and diplomatic tensions with the United States. Hear what Greenlanders had to say in a Twitter post from March 5th after the congressional I was going to say TV show. Whoops. Did feel like reality TV there for most of it. After the so-called speech before a joint session of Congress. Play the clip.
Greenland is a very independent with the help of Denmark. Honestly, we have our own living resources. And if we were to become a part of the USA, a lot of our living resources would like shorten, and we wouldn't get as much money that we're getting from our fishing. Like, it would increase a lot, and then we might get a lot of inflation doing so. He might add a lot of taxes here, which would also increase the homelessness here. We feel like it's a bad idea, and we just more want to be like our little island, just more independent than anything else.
Donald Trump, she got the military, she got the food, she got everything. I think she's thinking about it, Greenland. We need help. No more Danish, no more everything. We need help.
Imagine that, a citizen who actually understands how inflation works. If only. Greenland has massive amounts of rare earth minerals. They don't need a handout from us. What this is about, of course, is Donald's desire to seize Greenland's resources no matter what. And that should terrify everybody. Today, on March 5th, according to an AP report, Greenland's Prime Minister, Mothabe Egeye, rejected Donald's claims that the U.S. would acquire Greenland, declaring Greenland is ours and stating the island is not for sale and cannot be taken. Sadly, those are actually things that need to be said now. Egeye responded forcefully, stating, quote, "We don't want to be Americans nor Danes. We are Kalalit. The Americans and their leaders must understand that. We are not for sale and cannot be simply taken." Donald's remarks have ignited calls for full independence from Denmark as a major issue in Greenland's upcoming March 11th parliamentary elections. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen backed Greenland, reaffirming, quote, "Greenland is not for sale," unquote. Play the clip.
First of all, I would like to draw the attention to the fact that he said we respect the Greenlandics' right to self-determination, and that, I think, was the most important part of that speech. And I am very optimistic about what will be a Greenlandic decision about this. They want to loosen their ties to Denmark. We are working on that to have a more equal relationship. But I have no idea that they want to do that in order to become, an integrated part of America. So emphasizing what he did, the right to self-determination, I think, was the most important part of the speech. I just want to add very shortly that there is an election going on in Greenland. It will be the 11th of March. And I will be reluctant to say much more about this until we know the result of that election. I think it's important that it's free and fair and without any kind of international intervention. So I think I will limit myself to these remarks.
See what's happening there? Denmark and Greenland are working together to create a solution for this problem that did not exist 6 weeks ago. That is something Donald does not understand because, again, he thinks he should always get his own way without making any concessions at all. Denmark's leaders insist that Greenland's future must be decided freely, rejecting any U.S. interference in the election process. And then, of course, we have Canada. Prior to Donald's congressional speech on Tuesday evening, Canada had this to say in regards to the trade war Donald has started unilaterally. Play the clip.
Even the excuse that he's giving for these Paris tariffs today of fentanyl is completely bogus, completely unjustified, completely false. So we actually have to fold back on the one thing he has said repeatedly, that what he wants is to see a total collapse of the Canadian economy, because that'll make it easier to annex us, is the second half of his thought. Now, first of all, that's never going to happen. We will never be the 51st state. But yeah, he can do damage to the Canadian economy, and he's started this morning. But he is rapidly going to find out, as American families are going to find out, that that's going to hurt people on both sides of the border.
Oh, I know it's hard for people to wrap their heads around it, but that's kind of the point. After that, Donald decided to add insult to injury in his speech. His remarks were not well received because he linked trade deficits and drug trafficking to potential actions against Canada. This is what he had to say, quote, "Much has been said over the last 3 months about Mexico and Canada, but we have very large deficits with both of them. But even more importantly, they've allowed fentanyl to come into our country at levels never seen before, killing hundreds of thousands of our citizens," unquote. That is not true. He then hinted at cutting economic ties or taking further punitive measures against Canada. Quote, "We pay subsidies to Canada and to Mexico, have hundreds of billions of dollars in the United States, will not be doing that any longer. We're not going to do it any longer," unquote. Well, that should be easy because we're not doing it now. In a press conference today regarding Donald's speech, the egregious White House press secretary Caroline Leavitt had this to say.
Well, the president did just put out a statement on his call with the governor, Justin Trudeau, as he calls him, of Canada. And he said that he was not pleased, as you said. He said it's not good enough. He told Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that directly. The call ended in a somewhat friendly manner, as the president said, but he's not going to stop standing up for the American people. And to answer your question directly when it comes to fentanyl, for the last 4 years, unfortunately, our neighbors to the north and the south, Canada and Mexico respectively, have allowed America to be a dumping ground, not just for illegal aliens, but for illegal, poisonous, deadly fentanyl.
Okay, first of all, people can't be illegal. And she lies with as much fluency as Donald is. I mean, if it weren't so horrific, I'd be impressed. But, you know, it's just horrific. This is, again, all false. And honestly, the dumping ground, to the extent there is one, is Mexico. For what, you might ask? American guns. This afternoon, Donald posted this to his failing social media site, quote, "For anyone who is interested, I also told Governor Justin Trudeau," oh, you petty, pathetic little man, Governor Justin Trudeau of Canada, that he largely caused the problems we have with them because of his weak border policies, which allowed tremendous amounts of fentanyl and, I'm not saying it, you know, immigrants who are undocumented to pour into the United States. These policies are responsible for the death of many people, unquote. Since when do you care about people's deaths, Donald? I mean, come on. It's like your jam. Just 0.2% of U.S. border fentanyl seizures are at the Canadian border. All this is going to do intentionally is, one, disrupt our alliances, further weaken and isolate the United States, which will make it easier for Donald and his cronies like Elon Musk to steal from us, and make goods, you know, luxury goods like food and heating oil and gas for your cars unaffordable. This is what they're doing. And again, every single bit of it is entirely intentional. Please take a second and like and share this video. It'd be awesome if you could subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to us in podcast form, please follow us and give the show a 5-star rating because it really does help other people find our content. Thanks.